The Godfather is considered one of the greatest films ever made in Hollywood, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and adapted from Mario Puzo's novel. The story begins in the mid-1940s, in New York, during an era when Italian immigrant families were still struggling to find a foothold in America. Among them were powerful criminal organizations that had grown into what people called the Mafia. At the center of this world was the Corleone family, led by Don Vito Corleone, a man of dignity, calm authority, and unshakable principles. Don Vito was not just a criminal boss, he was a patriarch who valued loyalty, family, and respect above all else. His power came not only from fear, but from the trust and respect he commanded in both his family and the wider community. The film begins with the wedding of Vito's daughter, Connie Corleone. According to Sicilian tradition, a father cannot refuse any request made on his daughter's wedding day. People from all walks of life line up to ask favors from the Godfather. Some come seeking justice when the courts have failed them, others seek protection, and some want business opportunities. Don Vito listens carefully, weighing each request, offering his assistance, but always reminding them that friendship and loyalty will be expected in return. His philosophy was simple, he was not in the business of cruelty, but if someone was loyal to him, he would do anything to protect them. During the wedding celebration, we are introduced to the various members of the Corleone family. Sonny, the hot-headed eldest son, known for his temper and impulsive decisions; Fredo, the weaker, less competent middle son; Michael, the youngest son, who had returned from the war as a decorated Marine hero and wanted nothing to do with the family's criminal business; and Tom Hagen, the adopted son who served as the family consigliere, the trusted advisor. Michael attends the wedding with his girlfriend, Kay Adams, an outsider to the Sicilian traditions and the world of organized crime. Michael explains to her about his family but insists, "That's my family, Kay, it's not me." At this point, he truly believes he can build a separate life away from the family business. But as the story unfolds, the world of crime and power slowly pulls Michael into its orbit. When a narcotics dealer named Virgil Sollozzo approaches Don Vito with a proposal to invest in the drug trade, the Don refuses. Vito believes that narcotics are too dangerous, too destructive, and will bring unwanted attention from politicians and law enforcement. His refusal, however, sets off a chain of events that leads to betrayal and violence. Sollozzo, backed by rival families, orders an assassination attempt on Don Vito. Though Vito survives, he is severely wounded, and the Corleone family plunges into crisis. Michael, who had always resisted involvement in the family business, suddenly finds himself drawn in. Out of love for his father, he begins attending family meetings. When Michael Corleone returned to America after his exile in Sicily, he was no longer the hesitant son who wished to live a normal life. He carried with him the scars of violence, the loss of his wife Apollonia, and the knowledge that family survival required ruthless decisions. Don Vito, though still respected, was aging and weary of conflict. He had seen his eldest son Sonny murdered, his family targeted, and his empire threatened. Recognizing that Michael possessed the intelligence and discipline necessary for leadership, Vito began to prepare him to take over. Michael married Kay Adams upon his return, attempting to merge his personal life with his inevitable responsibilities. Kay, though uneasy about the world Michael belonged to, loved him enough to hope that he would eventually legitimize the family business. Michael himself promised her that within 5 years the Corleone empire would be completely legitimate, a promise born more of hope than conviction. Don Vito's health declined, and in a quiet, emotional moment, he shared his wisdom with Michael. He advised him about the dangers of trust, the treachery of friends, and the importance of family unity. Soon after, Vito Corleone died of a heart attack while playing in his garden with his grandson, a peaceful end for a man whose life had been anything but peaceful. The mantle of leadership passed fully to Michael, who was crowned the new Godfather during Connie's child's baptism. The baptism sequence is one of the most iconic scenes in cinema. While Michael stands as Godfather in the church, reciting vows of renunciation of Satan, his men carry out a series of brutal assassinations against the rival family heads. In a single masterstroke, Michael consolidates power, eliminates his enemies, and establishes himself as the undisputed head of the Corleone family. The juxtaposition of sacred ritual and merciless violence captures the duality of Michael's character, the devoted family man who is also a ruthless leader. Yet, this rise comes at a cost. Michael becomes increasingly isolated. When Connie's husband Carlo is revealed to have played a role in Sonny's death, Michael orders his execution. Connie, devastated, accuses Michael of being a murderer, but he denies it to Kay. In the final moments of the first film, Kay looks on as Michael receives the respect and loyalty of his capos, who kiss his hand and call him Don Corleone. The door closes on Kay, symbolizing her exclusion from Michael's true world. Michael's journey continues in The Godfather Part 2, which interweaves his consolidation of power in the 1950s with flashbacks of young Vito Corleone's rise in the early 1900s. While Vito's story shows how he built his empire through cunning, resilience, and a desire to protect his community, Michael's story shows the dark consequences of absolute power. Michael moves the family business to Nevada, expanding into casinos and attempting to gain political influence. But his enemies grow in N. Michael Corleone's later years reveal the ultimate tragedy of his life. In The Godfather Part 3, Michael is older, weary, and desperate to finally fulfill the promise he once made to Kay, to make the family completely legitimate. He attempts to invest in the Vatican Bank, hoping to transition the Corleone name into the highest levels of global respectability. But even in his efforts to escape the shadows of crime, Michael cannot break free from the past. Corruption, betrayal, and the weight of his own sins follow him relentlessly. One of the most striking aspects of Michael's later story is his awareness of his own damnation. He confesses to a priest, admitting the depths of his guilt, especially the murder of his brother Fredo. Tears stream down his face as he begs for absolution, but redemption never comes easily for a man who has traded everything for power. Despite his wealth and status, Michael is haunted by emptiness. His relationship with his children becomes central. Anthony, his son, chooses a career in opera rather than business, rejecting the family empire. His daughter Mary, however, becomes deeply involved in his affairs, both out of love and loyalty. Michael's trusted lieutenant, Vincent Mancini, Sonny's illegitimate son, rises to prominence, embodying the fiery aggression of his father and the cold calculation of Michael. Vincent eventually takes over as the new Don, representing both continuity and change. But the sins of the past catch up. A violent ambush at the Palermo Opera House leads to tragedy. Michael survives the attempt on his life, but Mary is fatally shot in front of him. The scream that escapes Michael as he cradles his dying daughter is one of the most haunting images in cinema, a man who has killed countless others finally confronted with unbearable personal loss. Years later, Michael dies alone in Sicily, slumped in a chair, surrounded by silence. No family, no honor, only the hollow shadow of a once powerful man. His story ends not with triumph, but with despair, showing that the price of absolute power is ultimate isolation. Pablo Escobar's downfall mirrors this inevitability. By the early 1990s, the world had turned decisively against him. The United States and Colombia joined forces in a relentless pursuit. A special task force, known as the Search Bloc, was created with one mission: capture or kill Escobar. Rival cartels, particularly the Cali cartel, also hunted him, eager to dismantle his empire and claim dominance. Even his former allies abandoned him, realizing that Escobar's war against the state threatened them all. In 1991, Escobar surrendered under bizarre conditions. He negotiated his imprisonment in a self-built fortress called La Catedral, equipped with luxury rooms, a bar, and even a soccer field. For a brief time, he lived like a king behind prison walls. But when he tortured and killed 2 cartel associates inside the prison, the Colombian government decided to transfer him to a standard.